Hello and welcome to Progressive Mindset. I'm Bradley Monday.
And I'm Jason Kemsley. And this is the second part of the three-part. It might be the three parts that make us on the top 5 of podcasts, maybe, hopefully.
Top 5's reaching, mate.
Optimism. We jumped into, obviously, in the first episode of this three-part, we spoke a lot about process. And it wasn't it's not the most enjoyable topic. And possibly none of these are. It's why people struggle with them, right? But
For sure.
Part 2 is all about delegation. And just want to start off by rounding this out with a bit of a definition of what delegation is. Delegation is a decision or an action that you can hand off to someone else. And specifically when we're talking about maximising business value, right, which is the headline of this series, we're talking about removing yourself from the running of the business.
Absolutely.
Having no single part rely on you.
You are meant to be the vision, the creative, the ideas person, but not be in the day-to-day running of your business.
Absolutely. So before we can delegate, you can't just go and delegate, right? You're setting maybe some people up for failure or whatever. What do we need to do before we can delegate?
There's a good reason that we've put these in the order that we've put them in. So if you didn't listen to part 1, before we start delegating, first thing to do is go and listen to part 1 of this series and look at processes. Until we have an operational system in place that people can come in, pick up and that sort of stuff, we can't begin to delegate. We need to get stuff out of our heads as entrepreneurs.
The ways we want it done.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to be careful with the ways we want it done. Definitely going to talk a little bit about in this episode about let's talk about the outcomes. Yes, processes need to drive us to make sure we get customer consistency, but actually the how we do things largely to achieve an outcome, we're going to understand that we're going to be employing different kinds of people throughout this process, and we delve into it in a little bit, but we need to get out of their way.
The way they reach that destination is not so important. It's did you reach the destination and achieve the same outcome along the way?
For sure. And definitely a part of that is to make sure that you've got your vision clarified. Let's talk about that roadmap. Let's talk about actionables, measurables, and make sure that we've got the steps to success outlined, right? We're going to need those before we can start going, right, okay, what people do I need? And then what tasks do I need to delegate to those individuals?
Okay. And obviously all of this is super key because when someone's coming, whether or not you're trying to exit or you're not trying to exit, if you're looking at business value in an exiting format, someone's going to come in and realise this business still depends on this person in some way, shape or form. And so there is a risk, there is a cost to us needing to fill that because they won't want to be around once they've sold it. If you're not exiting, what we're talking about is getting some life back.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, be able to take that holiday and not be integral to the business is incredibly freeing.
Absolutely. So if we jump into, I guess, some reasons why people don't delegate, because I think it's probably, much like processes, we mentioned lots of SMBs don't use it, but should. We spoke about the importance of checklists and how the evidence is everywhere of how good they are. They're just not used enough. Let's talk about some reasons why people don't delegate.
I think number one reason for not delegating has to be that as an entrepreneur, there is often this view that you know and execute best.
Yep.
So possibly just a bit of ego that you need to get over is people are, beginning to sound like a broken record already, and we're like 5 minutes in, but people aren't going to execute things in exactly the same way that you would be and would do.
It's kind of the beauty of it though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Take a different perspective. It doesn't mean that it's been done incorrectly just because it's been done differently to your view. So I think we need to almost check the ego at the door is probably number one.
Absolutely. And that is tough, right? Because you're used to being the person that knows it all. You're used to knowing what happens in finance, operations, product, marketing, whatever. But that's just not sustainable. If you want to create something meaningful, something scalable, something that is around for the long term, it can't all be on you.
No, and I also, in some way, can relate to the idea of many businesses will start by, employees number 1, 2, 3 aren't probably going to be at the top of their game. Most businesses don't have the finance
Sure.
to allow for that. So you bring in junior people with a view to offloading your view. So there's definitely this inherent fear of what happens when they make a mistake, those kind of things. So I think there is this fear of, hey, it's going to go wrong and my customers are going to suffer as well.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we cover off some of the things to help mitigate some of those things, but we'll get into that in a bit, yeah?
Yeah, and one of the big reasons I see people not delegate is they just think it's going to take so much time. We're going to become so inefficient. We're not going to get the amount done we need to get done. We're not going to get there. So I'm just going to do this myself.
Yeah,
it's
quick.
easier if I just do it myself.
Yep. Which is just a bit...
It's a plaster.
Yeah, it's short-sighted. So we need to overcome that. And probably for more managerial people, less entrepreneur, but more people in management positions within a business, there is a desire to do things because it makes you important.
Yep.
It definitely doesn't make you a great manager, but it gives you this feeling that, hey, I'm integral to this business, and therefore it creates job security and those kind of things. Is one of the reasons that why perhaps management levels don't delegate.
Absolutely. Obviously, if you have inexperienced people, or maybe you've taken on some junior people, you might worry a bit about their skill set. And these are all things that, they're kind of on you if you get the right people, etc. It goes back to that right people episode that we had a few ago. I was starting to see a bit of a correlation in our episodes intertwining in some ways, and definitely if you have someone that you've seen them make a mistake once or twice, the fear is there that if I pass this to you, you haven't got the skill set, we're going to upset the customer.
It definitely brings us on to, I guess, knowing your team, right? And making sure that we also know their limitations as well as their strengths.
Absolutely.
Where are they in their growth period and that sort of stuff. So we've got to delegate at the right time. So part of this is definitely about having the clarified vision and knowing what your measurables are and what your actionables are. You can then go out. I think that comes before the employment piece. So if we're looking at delegation from hey, it's just me, or it's me in a small team, we want to make sure we're giving the right tasks to the right people. So once you've got that clarification, you can then go, right, okay, I need someone with this skill set. And then maybe you build out other skill sets around that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you might be someone watching resonates with a reason they haven't passed a task off or whatever, because I think they, as an entrepreneur, they're inherently similar amongst everyone. It's that I can do it better, or it takes too long, or it's one of those reasons. I guess when it comes to delegating, let's assume we can get over those hurdles of I don't want to delegate because of time or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How can we maximise our chances of that delegation being successful? Or how can we maximise and make the most of it? Obviously, knowing your team is obviously first. Knowing their skill sets, making sure you don't give finance a task that is completely unrelated to their skill set. That's obviously number one.
Yeah, and so just for a second to sit in that, making sure we've got the right people and understanding the team, super key. And we mentioned this on a previous episode as well. Don't just employ loads of versions of you.
Yeah,
we talked about this. This was right people actually. We talked about ensuring that you're bringing lots of different views and lots of different visions into the business. So I think that's got to be number one, is don't employ more versions of you. And then invest in these people. When we find out weaknesses, you mentioned sort of the failings, and, they might have failed at a task multiple times. It's super important to let your people fail. Yep. It's the fastest way to learning. You might want to control that a little bit and make sure that we're failing at stuff that's maybe more internal or has less customer impact.
Yep.
We don't want to lose, we don't want to lose our reputation within our marketplace during that period.
Sure.
But it's definitely important to let them fail.
Absolutely. And I think as well as letting them fail, you've got to be investing in them. Mm-hmm. Keeping their skill set going, keeping their market knowledge up, keeping them. There was a saying that I heard the other day on actually another podcast, which was, if you're not investing in your people, you're not gaining from your people. And it really resonated that if you're not putting anything into them, you're not getting the best back, and vice versa. So you definitely, to get the most from delegation, you've got to keep that investment. You've got to keep that buying into your people up, because you get that steady increase in output, because everyone wants to be invested into, right? If I'm someone that is not invested into or not appreciated,
and then you get the retention piece.
Absolutely.
And then those skill sets grow, develop, as does your business, and it really helps in certainly the growth path. I think is we in our business have retained many people along a period of time, because they've been able to grow into new exciting roles and continue their own personal development.
Sometimes completely other different departments, right? It's
across the board. Just during one-to-ones and that sort of stuff is, hey, what drives you? What excites you? What's next? And then that can create the move around the business.
Absolutely. And we should possibly do a whole episode just on retention, because it is a huge topic in certainly our tech industry that we're in. There is a huge drive on retention and culture and stuff. So maybe it's worth a topic on its own. To be successful in delegation, and we mentioned it earlier, but you have got to focus on the outcome. You've got to focus on the end result, and not point 1, point 3 on the process or procedure list or whatever. You've got to focus on, did they get it done? Was it in a reasonable time frame? Not the same as you may do, because we're not looking for the same as what you're going to do. Yes or no. And it's really as simple as that. There's no nitpicking. Right, show me how you done it.
Yeah, we've already said it. Right, different people are going to achieve things in different ways.
Yep.
It is also I think delegation is definitely a two-way. It's a two-way street. In terms of, okay, you've carved out a task or a set of tasks, a job role, and you've given it to this individual. Let's harness the fact that everyone has a different view on things, a different way of completing a task.
Absolutely.
Is when you've completed when you've communicated your outcome really, really clearly, quite often you'll actually spark new and exciting ways of doing things in that individual. Is, hey, I can cut the time by 50% here and drive that. But back to the sort of the two-way street thing is, I think in growth of your business will drastically be impacted by whether you listen to those people that are involved in all these tasks that you've delegated. Don't always assume that your way
is the right way,
is the best way,
and the only way.
Yeah, don't discount other ideas coming up. Let's investigate them and help people. Ask the right questions, probe, challenge, so that actually those ideas are improved.
And to loop that back into the title, right, maximising value, that means things are improving when you're not there. That means things are ticking, the cogs are turning while you're not there. So if you go take a holiday, the business isn't stationary during your holiday period. Hopefully things are, it might not be many things, depending on how mature you are, but things are still being fine-tuned, and people can own that process or that particular task from start to finish, and you can have that margarita on the beach or whatever it is you so choose to do without the fear, because you've seen them demonstrate it. And it is, that two-way thing that you mentioned. Is there any other way, I guess, to get the most from delegation?
So one of the things that I think it's key to certainly acknowledge and maybe discuss a little bit is the fact that we are seeing more and more people, or more and more encouragement, certainly in the modern workplace, for entrepreneurs. Everyone should become an entrepreneur. There's lots of encouragement around it. So, but successful entrepreneurs need people within their business, right?
Yep.
So, whether I believe that everyone should become an entrepreneur or not is...
I believe everyone can want to be. I don't believe everyone inherently is.
Certainly, and I think it's also social media and the modern world is encouraging, hey, we can work less. Entrepreneurialism takes an enormous amount of time, effort, and engagement. So there's definitely a disparity there, but possibly...
Well, the disparity is, I think, being an entrepreneur is not necessarily about a destination. Right? It's not about, I'm going to do that and I'm going to get to this. And it's more, as an entrepreneur, it's the journey you thrive on. You look back and go, oh, that journey, if I could do that again, I'd do this different and this different. And there is a a slight change in that modern workplace of work less, be smarter, and more.
Absolutely, and that would suggest that no one necessarily, no one, gets out of bed in the morning and is jumping up and down, going, "Yay, I'm going to work."
Sure,
But it should definitely be an enjoyable thing.
absolutely.
And so, in terms of the delegation conversation that we're having, delegation in terms of setting an outcome and basically getting out of the way, be there to help overcome speed bumps and collaborate and contribute, but otherwise get out of the way, does allow people that are either budding entrepreneurs that may one day do their own thing, or those that have identified, hey, you know what, I'm not up for the financial risks and all the other risk related things that come on, but actually, you know what, I do want to own my own thing. And so you can allow within your business, you can have people come in with entrepreneurial mindset, which absolutely, why wouldn't you want that, right?
And we all want a purpose, right? None of us want to be, these I guess robots that are doing things a certain way. We all have a creative element of our brain, and we need to add some input. We need to improve something. We need to feel like we've taken ownership or purpose.
Yeah.
And that certainly does. If you have the ability to make of it what you wish, effectively, what you put in, you can get out, etc. You do end up going back to the retention point with better retention and better culture. You get to harness those talents and ultimately become a better business. And just to loop it back around to the value piece.
So I think this, before we move on from this, I think this is, although everyone can get the logic behind it, is actually quite difficult to do.
Delegation?
Not the delegation, the getting out, the going, hey, here is the desired outcome. Sometimes that outcome can be, it's not this afternoon, it's not next week. It can be, maybe you're working on a 90-day cadence. We obviously use rocks within our business. We're making sure that the rocks go in the jar first, and we reset them every 90 days. That can be quite a long time to go, hey, especially if you've just gone, right, here's the job role, I've carved it out, bring someone in, and then get out of their way for 90 days. That's quite a long time.
Absolutely.
And I know personally, seeing people do things in such wild, when you bring in a skill set, because maybe it's not where your focus is. You still, as an entrepreneur, you go, I've got a fair idea how we're going to achieve this task. When someone comes in and starts attacking it in a wildly different way to what you expected, that can be a difficult thing to go.
It's nerve-wracking.
And we've had conversations about people that we've brought into the business going, we're wasting lots of time over here doing this thing. How is this, how is this creating the results that we want? And it's like, keep reminding
wait until
each
the
other,
results. Yeah.
Just wait until the results. Wait until the results. So I don't know whether
you almost have to take a punt. You have to take a gamble at some point and go, right, for 4 weeks, I'm going to keep my ego in check and I'm going to stand back. And so and we were talking about right customers. My way of dealing with it is that competitive analysis type thing where I think, hey, I can't keep doing what I'm doing because I'm penalising loved ones or friends or whatever. So I need to give this a go. And I have to give myself that. If I don't do this, I'm not going to improve that. I have to weigh the two up to be able to give me the fuel to allow that ego to be in check and the outcomes to happen. And it goes back to if you're a business of a mature type of size, as a leader, you're leading. Your managers should be managing. They should be managing the outcome and knowing, right, we're not going to hit the outcome or whatever. As a leader, if you've got effective people, you shouldn't necessarily need to until it reaches the train's off the tracks. Or that's assuming you're mature, which obviously some people may not that are listening.
And definitely in terms of the train being off the tracks, maybe a little bit before, we might want to check that analogy. If we've crashed, it's
obviously
wrong.
too late.
But so let's talk about. So I use 90 days as being the example in my experience that we were literally bringing new people in and going, "Hey, here's the outcome." As an entrepreneur, everything's about risk. How much risk are you willing to take? If the 90-day task is something big, external, that sort of stuff, we should probably create some milestones,
some
right?
checkpoints. Yeah.
we got to check in, make sure it's going, because if it's going wildly, if we can predict.
But they're not analytical check-ins, right? They're not, where are you up to, what are you doing? They're not analytical check-ins that are...
No.
These are high-level check-ins.
Call them mini outcomes, if you will. Is if the outcome is, let's say it's a service level agreement, how, what percentage are we in line with a service level agreement? If we're aiming for, if your business has a real problem in that area, whatever that service level agreement might be, creation of X amount of product or whatever, we've got these percentages we need to hit within our businesses. If you brought someone in to fix a problem and you know where you need to get to in the longer term, well, then let's look at, make sure it's going in the upward direction. Right?
Absolutely.
We can check it.
Just like if you bring finance, whatever, there's always a number that you can measure, right? There always is.
Yeah. And so I think that's the fix there is create quite slightly smaller ones so that we can sit down and have a conversation with these people did you expect to be here? Keep it open and honest.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've done reasons why people don't delegate. We've done how to get the most from delegation. Let's maybe, I say finish off. We've got a little bit left, but let's finish off with the do's and don'ts.
Mm-hmm.
There are some do's and don'ts. If you're going to write anything down or take note of anything on this podcast, this might be the bit that you write it down for. It's probably touching upon what we just touched upon, but what can we not do?
It's the obvious one, right? It's the micromanagement. It is the opposite of what we've been discussing thus far. Is if you're in people's pockets saying, "Hey, but this is how we should be doing things. This is the step by step," and you're not doing the step by step.
Absolutely.
What are you doing right now? Why even down to, well, why you're on your mobile phone? What's going on? Let's just not manage these people. Hey, we've certainly got some people in our business that can achieve their goals seemingly with their mobile stuck to their hand all day long. And so it's the purpose of these outcomes and the metrics that we're setting are allowing those people that are just very efficient and are finding new ways to have that freedom of all the modern things that are expected in the workplace. But you can also know that those ones that aren't doing any work
Absolutely.
Are managed.
Absolutely. And I think the second big thing for what not to do is take over. Is feel like you're losing control, feel like you're losing... I guess it's the ego coming up again, but if you feel like, I wish I hadn't given it to them, you're micromanaging them maybe, or you're watching them but holding back the micromanagement, is if you don't let that take its desired path or outcome, and obviously you can have the checkpoints in with the high level touch points or whatever, but if you don't let it take the desired outcome, you're never going to see what needs to be righted or perfected or whatever word you may want to use. So a lot of people probably have a tendency, and I've seen it once or twice, not very often, but they start off with a task with someone. They feel like they've lost their control. They can't bring it in line. They don't feel like they have the visibility, or they don't know how to, I guess, get the sense of achievement that they're moving forward with it. And then they go, well, okay, I'm just going to do it. Take it back. That's more detrimental than ever even giving it to them.
So we've talked at length about bringing employees into a business during this. It doesn't mean that you can't use outsourced options here, right? Which the reason I brought this up at this point is, one, because actually outsourcing things that you're not good at is an awesome thing to do. But we've absolutely seen, in terms of the losing control thing in our space where we work in the outsourcing space, is actually an outsourcing relationship can be going absolutely fine and delivering and meeting the goals.
Absolutely.
But because people feel like they've lost a little bit of control, reverse it, go back to the
And that's
beginning.
where you come back to the vision, right? We talked about vision being a prereq. In your vision is not, I want to feel like I'm in control of everything I do. And so if you're meeting the metrics, if you're delivering, but you feel like you've lost a bit of control, but you're meeting your vision, you've got to bring yourself in check a little bit there.
And I really feel like that's a super key point for those that are built this way, and are inclined to want to keep control. It's the difference, and we do see this time and time again, between a thriving business that is going to grow beyond the limitations of its founder, of the entrepreneur, is to let go. You really, really need to work. If that is a trait that you relate to, I think it's the key focus.
Well, I guess for anyone watching or listening, go and try and find a successful entrepreneur that didn't let go.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll be able to find one. I don't think that exists. They've all delegated in some way, shape or form. They have processes. Might be they didn't write them and they got someone else to write them, or they had the right person in to do it. But they definitely went through this, but they definitely had the internal willpower to see the end goal, and that meant more than day to day.
For sure. Unless success for you looks like being super busy and being in control of everything, in which case
you've met them.
Yeah. And you find people that are equally happy doing that. So I guess as part of clarifying your vision, it is, what does success look like to you? Not everyone wants to grow and build an expanding business that goes beyond them.
Absolutely.
Control for some people can feel comforting.
Okay, so we've done what not to do. Let's end on what to do. If you are listening to this and you take any part of this podcast away, these are some things that you should do or probably need to start doing if you want to delegate successfully. And I'm big on this one.
I'm going to let you start.
Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm super passionate about this one. That is, give others credit. Give the other people credit. I can't remember the scenario. There's a scenario in my brain. I thought it was vivid. It's clearly not. Where I think I've done something pretty cool or awesome. And I let the line manager, I said, you take credit for this. You say it was your idea and do it. And it's, I'd done the task, so I didn't delegate the task. It was something possibly someone else could have done at the time. Mm-hmm. I didn't delegate the task, but if you delegate a task to someone, they reach the outcome, they should get all the praise for it. Even if you threw an idea in there or whatever, it's all on them. It's their success, because their success is your success. Your success is not their success. I know it's confusing, but as a leader, if you succeed, then it doesn't necessarily mean your team have succeeded. If your team succeed, as long as you've got a good direction in the ship or in the company, you've almost likely 100% of the time succeeded as well.
No, absolutely. Given it in many businesses, it's really difficult to focus in on the negatives. So absolutely. I completely agree. Is positive. Shout about the positives in any way, shape or form you can.
What else should we do?
In order to work out what to delegate, now we covered this again. We covered this previously. Work out what saps your creative energy, and get rid of that. Right, as we've already covered, you need to be the creative, the ideas person. So go and find out what's sapping my energy, and get rid of those things first. The bits that you don't enjoy doing, or that you're not very good at, they need to go first. They're the best sources.
Yep.
Something else that we're seeing an awful lot of is businesses that at quite an early stage, when there is an idea that people feel like they can invest in, they get thrown money at.
Yeah.
It is very, very easy to get the best people in to solve those problems when you've got lots of money behind you.
Yeah.
We obviously sit more in that traditional space where we've been self-funded and created a business that is profitable from early on to be able to sustain itself. So this point is for those people, the people that are not reliant on people pumping in cash.
It's about knowing which one you fit in, though, right? There are some businesses that are very well positioned for funding straight out the gate, 300% growth year on year, and you have 30% of this monster.
Yeah, and definitely not knocking it as a model. It's just this point in particular is something that I resonate with.
Sure.
Particularly is it's about understanding when the time is right for delegation, and I'm talking about bringing people in to delegate to. Again, I've done some reading. The profit first book, and I won't mention the author. We'll stick it in the show notes because I will butcher his surname.
Okay.
But Profit First talks about ensuring that we're carving out what we want to make out of our business first, and almost protecting that rather than going in and overspending, which is super, super easy to do. So it's about walking that tightrope of when is right to bring people in your business. So making sure that you've understood that is key.
And that probably brings us to the last and final note on that point of, these are tips again for whether or not you're selling or not. These are not exclusive to, I'm trying to get the most money, the biggest EBITDA multiplier, the biggest revenue, whatever it is, whatever method. It's not about that. It's about creating a sustainable, scalable business with good people that everyone enjoys being a part of, and they do exist and they can exist.
Yeah.
And it's just about how you interpret some of, this podcast, any other podcasts or books you listen to make the most of it. So the next episode, we're on to automation.
We are, and we're from the tech space, so we're going to try and keep this as dialed down, non-technical as possible.
And that isn't just tech automation, right? You can automate things that aren't necessarily completely tech driven in some way, shape or form, but it's about us increasing that bottom line as much as we can.
Absolutely. So join us for part 3 of the series, and we'll see you on the next one.